Hi folks, Redneck Reloader here. Thanks for joining me. I travel a lot and I have I call it a travel kit, like a kind of a minimalist reloading kit that I bring with me when I'm going on the road. If I'm going on a work assignment and I'm going to be somewhere for 3 months, I'll bring some stuff to reload with me. Usually, whatever gun I have with me, that's what I'll bring. So if I go out shooting, I can bring my cases back and reload. Geared towards people who are thinking like they want to start reloading, and maybe you don't want to make a big commitment, or maybe you live in an apartment or something like this. I've used this kit in my camper. I've used this kit in motel rooms. To me, this is a very effective kit. I can load anything I want to reload with this kit, and not quite as fast as I can with the press that's mounted on a bench, but pretty close. And so I was thinking I'd make this video for somebody who might just kind of want to get started. Maybe you don't want to make a big investment, or like I said, maybe you live in an apartment or something. This is a good setup for you. I'm in my living room. This is a cheap plastic folding table from Walmart. I have everything I need to reload. I went out and shot my 45 ACP a while back. I've got a bunch of empty casings here and got some bullets and powder and primers, and I'm going to sit here and reload these 50 45 ACP rounds. So before I start that, I wanted to show you this kit and show you how easy it is to really get started. So what you have to do with this, what do I have to do with this case to fire this again? Well, I need to resize this case, meaning, once it explodes in the, you fire it and you get the explosion in the chamber, the brass stretches out a little bit to conform to the chamber and stuff. So it's got to be resized, brought back down to size. The primer in the back of the case, that's been fired. So that needs to be removed, or the case needs to be deprimed. And then you'll have to put a new primer in. And you're going to have to charge this with powder. And you have to put a new bullet in it. And to put a new bullet in it, you usually have to, what they call belling the case mouth. So that's the open into the case, the mouth of it, and the bullet goes in there. You have to kind of bell it a little bit. So it's a straight case. You just have to open the ends up a little bit so it's a little bit easier to set the bullet in. And then after that, you have to crimp that back. On a straight wall case like 45 ACP, you're just doing a straight, bringing it back to straight. If you're loading a revolver, like 38 Special, that uses what they call a roll crimp, where the bullet will have a little groove in it, and when you crimp the case, you actually roll the ends of it, and it kind of goes into that groove to hold the bullet. But this depends on the caliber you're loading. So those are the steps that it takes to reload pistol rounds. Now, rifle rounds have some extra steps to them, and you got to do all those steps, but there's a little extra. And I'm going to cover that in the end. Right now, I'm just talking about pistol rounds. So what do you need to do all that? Well, you need a set of dies, and that's caliber specific. So you need for all the calibers you're going to load, you need to have a set of dies for that caliber. There's a few, like 357 and 38 Special, where there's companies that sell die sets that'll do both, but basically like 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, you're going to have a set of dies for each one. Set of dies, 50, 60, 70 bucks a set, somewhere in that ballpark. Don't quote me on it. There's a lot of die, different manufacturers. Today, the dies I'm using have to be made by Lee. I've got RCBS dies, I've got Lyman dies, Hornaday dies, C&H. I've got a lot of different manufacturers. They're all pretty similar. I like Lee dies nowadays. The ones I've been buying lately have been Lee. There's a few advantages to theirs that I like. One of them is the decapping pin. When you decap these cases, if the pin isn't like perfectly straight and it doesn't hit the primer, hits part of the case or something, with RCBS and some of those, it snaps the pins off. So you have to have spare pins so you can change them when they snap off. The way the Lee dies are made, it's got a long pin that goes through. I'll just show you. So this is their die that resizes the case and deprimes it. And the pin sticks out the bottom, so when you push the case up into it, that pin pops out the primer. The way the Lee pin is made is a solid pin that goes all the way through, and up on the top there's a nut, and there's a friction hold up here. So you just tighten that nut down as much as you need to for the friction. So if this pin's not aligned straight and it gets pushed up, instead of breaking, it just pushes past that friction and the whole thing will just kind of pop up. Then you can loosen the nut, push it back down in place, tighten the nut back up, and move on. You don't have to replace a broken pin. I guess it is possible to break pins on Lees because I have seen them selling replacement pins, but I've never broken one. Other die sets I've broken a number of pins. It happens. So, because sometimes you get a case where the pilot hole, the hole that's for the primer, is off-centered, and so when you run it in, it just doesn't hit the hole. Stuff happens. So, but there's 3 die sets and there's 4 die sets. A 3 die set will do everything you need. So, for example, with this Lee die set, this first die will resize the case and deprime it. The second die will bell the case mouth to accept the bullet, and it's also a through die. You can see all the way through it. So you can also add the powder at this point if you want to. You don't have to do it then. You can take it out of the die and then just do the powder separate, which is the way I do it. But if you want to, especially on what they call like a progressive press, where you're just pulling the lever and it's the table indexes and the case moves from station to station, a lot of those will just do the powder at this point. So the through die is nice for that, and the Lee dies are through dies. And then this final die is, it sets the depth of the bullet. So you put the bullet in the case and you have to push it down to the correct depth, and it's called the seating die, and that's where you do this. And this is also a crimp die. So it seats the bullet and it crimps the case. So that's a 3 die set. Now Lee makes a extra die. It's called a factory crimp die. And all this does is it sets the crimp. But at the bottom of it, there's a carbide ring. So when you push the case back up in there, where the case mouth has been belled, if it's not been brought all the way back in, that will resize it, bring it all the way in, and then it puts a nice uniform crimp on it. So it's a nice die for crimping. It's not necessary. Before Lee created this die, for decades, people were making perfectly acceptable ammo with a 3 die set and just using the seating and crimp die. But if you have a 4 die set that has the factory crimp die, that's kind of nice to use. Mine was a 3 die set, but I bought the factory crimp die separate. So when I use this die, I only use it for the seating. I don't do the crimping part. I use the factory crimp die for the crimping. Other die sets I don't have a factory crimp die. I just use 3 die set. So I bought this for a very specific gun I have that's kind of finicky. So that's why I have it for that. So you need a set of dies for every caliber you load. And to use with the dies, you need a press. And if you've been thinking about reloading, you probably watched some videos and seen some things. See people have a good solid bench with a press mounted on it, and you do it. Nothing wrong with that. I've got a couple of them myself. But when I travel, that's kind of hard to work with. So Lee makes this hand press. And this is a kit. And it's got a few things included in it. It's not just the press. But the hand press looks like this. And so you screw the die into it like this, and you would put your case in here, and then you just push the case up into the die. So instead of having the press mounted and you're working the arm, you're just using your 2 hands, and you don't have to have the press mounted. So as you can see, it's very flexible for working in a apartment or somewhere where you don't have a lot of space, you can't mount a press. This is handy, and then when you're not using it, you can put it in a drawer. So this Lee hand press is a good start. And you can load rifle rounds with this as well, which I'll talk about on the end. So the press, you can put as much force as this is pretty much you can a bench mounted press. So this is very handy. Now, when I bought this press, it came in a kit. Now, I looked online today because I've had this for several years, so I wanted to kind of get a price so I could, when I made this video, I could kind of give you an idea on price. From what I've seen, just briefly, just the press alone, you can get them for like $60, something like that. The kits are more closer to like 100, but they make a little different kit now than when I bought mine. I've noticed they have some kits that have a hard plastic case, and they actually come with a die set. So you buy the kit, but you can buy the kit for 9mm. So it comes with the press, but it also comes with a set of dies for 9mm. So for an extra 40 or 50 bucks, you can buy a set of dies, which is a little bit cheaper than what they usually go for, about the same price. So you're not really saving any money by doing that, but there's a convenience thing to it, I guess. So yeah, so now they have the kits with caliber specific. And then if you buy another set of dies, you can buy the 9mm kit. Comes with the 9mm dies. You can use it to load 9mm. Then if you buy a set of dies for 40 Smith & Wesson, then you can load 40 Smith & Wesson with it. You just need to buy dies. The other stuff that came in the kit, just to show you, there's a funnel. This funnel is actually a double funnel. So obviously it's a funnel on this end, but it's actually a funnel on this end too, on the inside. And so you can take a case and set it over it, and it'll fit tight around the case for 45 ACP. I can also put this on a 9mm, and because of the funnel inside, it'll make a tight seal around 9mm. So you can use this for a lot of different calibers. It's listed on the side. I don't have my glasses on, I can't read the range, but it's a pretty good range. I've used this with 223, which if you've ever seen those, are very small neck. That's about the smallest you can go with it, and I have mixed reactions with it. Sometimes the 223 is so small it almost gets stuck in there because it's like just the perfect size to fit in there, but you can use it. And then also the through die where you beld the case mount, the funnel will actually fit in the end of the die as well. So if you wanted to beld the case mount and do your powder at the same time, you could do it all in the press. You could run the case up in there, beld the case mount, then dump your powder in, and when you pull it back out, it's belled and charged already and ready to accept a bullet. So you can use it with that. So that's kind of handy. The Lee little funnels are nice. They're through powder die. This is something that is a Lee thing I haven't seen on the other ones. If you listen, the portion of the inside of the die that bells the case mouth can move up and down. And so what happens is when you use it with the powder funnel, and it bells the case mouth, you put the powder in, sometimes static will cause a little powder to stick to the side. When you lower the ram and you pull it back out, that little metal piece will pull out off of the case mouth and kind of shake this a little bit, and it'll shake that powder down in there better. So that's what that's in there for. If you want to use it with the funnel, it's a nice little feature. So you get the press, the funnel. You also get some lube. So if you are using a modern die set, I think I want to say everybody, I don't think there's anyone who doesn't, but all of the modern die sets, inside the first die where you do the resizing and the decapping, there's a carbide insert in there. It's kind of slippery, so you don't have to lubricate your case. An old die set that's like solid steel that doesn't have the carbide insert, you have to lubricate cases, even pistol cases, or they will get stuck up inside the die. And then when you go to pull them out, that soft brass, you'll pull the end off of it and it'll be stuck in the die set, and it's a big mess to get out. Rifle cases, you have to lubricate them every time because they will get stuck if you don't. So rifle cases, it's mandatory to lube them. Pistol, it's you don't have to lubricate them if you have a carbide die set. So Lee includes a tube of their lube. Lube pretty inexpensive. You can buy it. This is a liquid. This is a brand new tube because I haven't used it. I don't usually use Lee. All right, I'm back. I know you guys didn't know I was gone, but I had a phone call that I had to take. So I think I left off talking about the lube. I don't use the Lee lube. I usually use Unique case lube. It comes in a tub. It's kind of a paste. And so I just rub a little bit on my fingers and lubricate the cases. So I don't use the liquid. I have. It works okay. It's just I got used to using Unique years ago, and that's just what I've always used, so I stick with that. And let's see, what else comes in with this? Okay, so besides depriming the cases, you also have to reprime the cases. And this comes with a little attachment that you can use that. It's a little special die, and then there's two little priming plungers. There's one for large primers and one for small primers. So you have everything you need to do that. That's everything that comes with the kit, and it's pretty inclusive. Pretty much everything you need to reload. It fits in this nice little box. It's easy to store, and you can put it in a drawer or something. And you can make just as good a quality ammo with this little press as you can one that's mounted on a bench. So what else do you need besides that? Well, of course we have to put powder in, so you have to weigh the powder. I have a couple of mechanical scales that I use for powder, for weighing it. But for this kit, I bought this little digital scale off of eBay. This particular one's called Popweigh. I think I paid like $20-30 for this. And it's pretty doggone convenient. It's a little digital scale. It's very small. Seems very accurate. Works good. And one thing I like about this one, it comes with a little pan. So you can weigh the powder right in that, and then you can dump it. This pan, the little tip is actually small enough I can just dump it, like for this 45 ACP, I can dump these in the cases without even using the funnel. So I like that about it. It also comes with a calibration weight, so you can calibrate it. It measures in several different settings, but for me, it measures in grains. And then what I like about this one is it actually comes with a powder scoop. So you got this, you can scoop your powder out, just kind of knock it into the pan, and it's pretty much everything you need. So I really like this little scale, and this works good for me, and it's small, and it's a nice little part of the kit that goes along with my little travel kit here that I use. Some optional stuff. I have some stuff here that you don't have to have to reload with, but it's kind of nice, so I do. So it's this little tray. These are these little reloading trays. This is one by Lee. Actually, no, it's not by Lee. This is a universal loading tray. This one's okay. It's not my favorite. I've got one at home that's, well, not at home, but my other reloading shop where I load at, it's RCBS. I prefer that one, but this one's okay. It's made, it's got both sides, and it's got larger and smaller holes, so it's kind of made universal to fit like any caliber. But you don't have to use this, but if you're setting your brass out on a table like this and you're putting your powder and stuff in, it's really easy to knock a case over. So it's kind of nice in this. Everything just is held in there nicely. And when I charge all my cases with powder, I like to go back and look at them and make sure there's powder each one, so I don't end up with a squib load. And it's really easy with this to do because you can angle it and hold it up against the light to really look down in there nicely. So yeah, these are handy, and they're like $10-15 for one of these little reloading trays. I think it's a good investment, but you don't have to have it, but it's kind of nice. So the other thing is a caliper. So when you're reloading your finished ammo, you have to have it at the correct length. So For example, with 45 ACP, the maximum length for this, it'll give you a minimum and a maximum length. So the maximum for this is 1.275 inches. And so when you are going through the reloading process, you seat that first bullet, and that's the one you play around with and adjust, and you get the depth right. Once you have that set, you can set the die off of that bullet, and then the other 49, as you load them, you don't have to touch that setting again. So you only have to use this for the very first cartridge. This is an optional thing, because what I have here is a dummy round. It's just a round that's made. There's no powder in it and there's no primer in it. I set this at the correct length for 45 ACP, which in this case, this that I'm setting it at is 1.250. And then when I get ready to load, I just use this to set my length, and I don't have to use the caliper. I only have to use that if I'm doing something new. I've seen people, and I've done it myself, where I'll just take a factory round, and use that to set my length. So even the caliper is optional. You can use a dummy round, or you can do a factory round and use that to set your length. So not absolute critical you have to have that. So other than that, that's a pretty much complete reloading setup. So the only other stuff I need to reload this 45 ACP rounds are bullets, which I've got here, some powder, which I have here, and primers. I call those consumables because you consume those and use them up. This stuff stays the same. You can have this stuff for 20 years and still use it and do reloading. This stuff you got to replace every time, obviously. So everything I've got here could fit in a pretty handy little size case, bag, whatever, and you can take with you on the road. Or if you're here in an apartment, you can put all this stuff in a drawer and just pull it out when you want to reload. And so it's a pretty minimalist setup. Depending on how many calibers you want to load, it's a fairly cheap setup. As I said, the set I saw today, you can buy this press for, let's say, 9mm for $100, and scale for, let's say, 30. I've had this a couple years. I'm sure the price has gone up, but let's say $30-$40 for a scale. So you're in for 120, 30, $40. And then if you want to buy a loading tray, throw in an extra $20, caliper if you want it. So easily under $200, really maybe under $150, and you can be set up to reload one caliber. And then every caliber you want to do after that, you just have to buy a set of dies for it. You can buy used dies. I have bought used dies. Back before COVID, I used to be able to get a set of dies sometimes for $20-$25 on eBay. Since COVID, like during COVID, all that stuff went way up because everybody was wanting it. I haven't bought any used dies in a long time. The last few sets I bought have been new ones. This was actually a used set, which is why this is not in a standard Lee box. This is in an old RCBS box, because when I bought this, it didn't come in a box, and I had an empty old box, so I just put it in this. So there's some cost cutting you can do there. You can buy some used stuff. You can buy these used if you can find them. The newer ones like this, which I would say, I don't know how long they've been making them like this, probably 10 years or so. They have this, forget what they call it. I think it's called the breech lock, but it's a removable insert that goes in here. Oh, this one's hard to turn. You can turn it like a quarter of a turn and take it out. So the idea is that you can buy a bunch of these inserts. You can have your dies set in here, and you can have them all set to the right length. And then you can take the insert out with the die and just leave it on there locked in. And then when you want to reload again, you just put it back in there. And then it's a quarter of a turn to lock. You can leave it in. So you can buy these extra inserts. I don't have any extra ones. I just have the ones that came with the press because I just don't use them that way. I just screw my dies in, but that is an option. I do know the older Lee hand presses did not have that. They're just solid up here for the die to screw in. So if that's something that's interesting you, and if you're going to buy a used unit, kind of look for that. That it is a newer one that does have that, and you can see the difference. You can see that like silver ring up there with that, where the old ones wouldn't have that. It would just be the red that's threaded for it to screw in. All right, so I told you you can use this. That's everything for pistol. So I told you could use this for rifle rounds, but there was a little bit different, and I did tell you that I would talk about that at the end, so I would be lying if I didn't. So can you use this for rifle? Yes. It's a little bit more difficult to actually work the press. And the way I use this, guess I need to get it back out. The way I use this is like this, like I'll take both sides and push together like that, or sometimes I'll put this against my chest and pull like that. It's harder to do it like sideways, especially if you've got powder in it and you're trying to set the bullet, you're going to dump the powder out. So I like to do it upright. The other thing is, this thing is hollow. So when you're depriming the cases, those primers are coming out and they fall down inside this ram. So you can deprime all those cases, the ram will catch them all, and then you can just go over to the garbage can and dump them out and they'll fall out. If you're doing it sideways, you tend to lose the primers, and then you're picking them up, stepping on them and stuff. So I tend to do it like this. When you're doing rifles, it's a little tougher. So if I'm doing a rifle, that's when I'm kind of more likely to kind of do it like this, so I get a little more leverage on it. But you can do it. I've loaded 450 Bushmaster with this, which is a pretty good beefy round. Loaded 223 with this. I've loaded 7.62 by 39 with this. So for that portion of it, yes, you can use this. But there is a big difference with rifle cases versus pistol cases. And the rifle cases, the way that they're bottlenecked, so like, for example, 223, where it comes up, it's larger in diameter, and then it comes in, and then it's got the little neck up on the end that holds the bullet. Those, as you fire them, they tend to stretch out, and the brass gets longer. So you have to measure those, and if they're too long, you have to trim them back. There's various different ways to trim those. I have a Lee trimmer where you mount the brass in the press and you run it up, and then you have the circular trimmer. I use the hand one. You can do it. They make them it'll work with drills. I think Hornady makes a little unit that you can mount, like set on a table, and it holds it horizontally, and it's got a handle you crank and you trim it. This kit doesn't have anything for trimming. So you can do rifle with this, but you got to figure out how to trim your cases. So you would have to do something separate in order to trim your cases. And that's the main thing with rifle. So yes, the kit is usable to reload it with rifle, but you're going to have to figure out another way to trim your cases, because this kit doesn't give you anything to do that with. But as long as you figure that out, this works just fine with rifles. So that's about it. That's all I'm going to do today. This video, I just wanted to introduce this to you as a kit for an inexpensive way to get started reloading without a big investment of money, and it's a handy way if you're not wanting to set like a dedicated workbench up, or you can't set up a dedicated workbench. This is something you can, like I said, I have this plastic table, I can fold this up and put it away, but it's kind of nice and solid to lay everything out. And that's about it. So I'm going to make another video of me actually doing this reloading, where I'm going to take you step by step how to use this and how to use everything for reloading. So if you're interested in that, I'll be posting that in a couple of days. If you want to subscribe, it'll give you a notification. But other than that, I think I'm done for today. So thank you very much. It's Redneck Reloader. I appreciate you all very much, and God bless you if you sat through this whole video. Thank you very much.